Way. It should be okay now. That's because I don't have it hooked up into speakers.
Safer that way. And that is the saddest part of what's going on today. And people are not being protected. And these people are going above and beyond their public service of employment. And technically, public employees are not supposed to have contact with lawful bloodline Americans. They are supposed to have contact with, and they're code violator arresters for code violations, technically for elected and public servants, registered church members, registered voters, and all immigration, and including illegal immigration. And when the illegals are picked up, they're supposed to go to ICE immediately. They are not supposed to be set free. I have videotape where I've watched judges in Lincoln County that even immigrants that even basically murdered, raped children, and also too some severe car wrecks that have happened, and they let them go that are illegal. And this is the saddest part that's going on. And people go, oh, everybody wants to whine, and all these people want to whine about things, but nobody wants to stand up and back things up that somebody else is doing. And it amazes me that people want to come to you, they want to whine, but they sure don't want to stand up. And this is totally disturbing to all of us, including the ones of us that are helping these men and women out. And it really, really pisses us off when we go through this stuff. And it is disturbing, you know, and it is really disturbing. It really pisses me off when these people do this crap. And, you know, we all live this shit. And that's the problem. We're all living this stuff. And nobody is comprehending what the truth is. Nobody wants to stand for the truth. And that is the saddest part. We are really living today. And we all are living this stuff today. And it is sad that we are living this stuff today. And so how do we solve it? You know, we start putting affidavits out. You have to file criminal charges on these domestic terrorists. And that's what they are, domestic terrorists. Because they don't care about your children. They care about how much money they bring in. And that is the actual truth. They care about money more than they care about you. And, you know, it's hard to say that one because most people do the same thing. You know, they don't care about your rights or their rights. They don't want to stand up for things. But they sure want to go moan, bitch, and complain. We all talk to people like this. And this is the part that is dragging our country down, 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 more in a democratic society. And people don't realize, and I've talked to people, oh, we need democracy, we need the Democrats, we're saving this stuff. No, you are not. See, that's what gets to me, when people sit there and they don't even know what the law is, but they sure know statute codes and administrative rules, and they sure know religion, but they sure don't know the law. And see, this is the part that is so disturbing to us. Really, when it comes down to it, it is so disturbing because these people are getting away with assault, battery. You know, I just watched a video earlier this afternoon where a guy called in and reported to have a stray animal picked up. And the cops showed up and they started assaulting the guy when he was trying to turn over a stray dog. And they tried to arrest him. So what did they do? He was not cooperative. They put a bullet in his belly and split his spine and killed him. And this is what you're living today. Hello, Nazi Germany. Is there any intelligent people out there who comprehend Nazi Germany that you are living today? This is the saddest part of what's going on. And we all are living this crap today. And this is the saddest thing that is happening. So this is the reason why I put this stuff together. This is the main reason why I put all this affidavit together. And my computer froze, and I'm trying to get this thing to stop because I got a thing that just started playing video. And so anyhow, I'm trying to stop it. But it comes down to this stuff. When people report crimes, remember, a crime is not a violation. That is the main thing people need to realize. A crime is not a violation. And so a crime is injured man, woman, or child and property damage. That's what a crime is. And so when you start realizing what a crime is compared to what the fantasy you're living in your own brain because your neighbor has a barbecue going and you don't like the smoke it's creating. You don't like what's going on with that structure. You don't like what's happening around your area, which you're calling your area. And see, this is the problem that we are really having around this country. And you got to realize what this is doing to all of us, including your own children. When your own children watch this stuff on TV, and violence is on TV, because remember, violence is money. Violence makes money, especially on TV, radio. You know, that's the one thing that it comes down to. They make money off of this stuff, income. And they don't care about you or your income. We live in what they call a society today that, you know, it goes by everybody's out for themselves and they don't care. They really don't care. I mean, I've talked to many people that have proven this point to me. And it is disturbing when people don't sit there and stand up and protect their families. They don't want to research. I talked to a few people this week dealing with children's services. And, you know, they want to wait for a judge decision. They don't want to jump on it and start something before they go to court. And it's like, okay, well, when you go to court, you lost your rights. And they're going, oh, no, the judge is going to be fair. The judge is going to listen to me. The judge. And I keep telling these people, and there's other men and women on this who listen to this show that tell them the same thing. And do people want to listen? No. People want to go back to religion before they want to learn the Constitution. That is the saddest part of what is the reality today. People don't want to protect themselves. Everybody says we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to protect ourselves. Well, you know, Smith & Wesson is a great protection when it comes down to it. But when the other point that comes down to it is knowing the Constitution and separating the Constitution law versus statute, codes, and administrative rule, with your elected and public employees call law. See, it's knowing the structure of what law is. And we're going to start going through Sunday, start doing the Bill of Rights Sunday. We're going to tackle one at a time. And so this way we're going to start doing this so people can sit there and know what their rights are. Because you have to know your rights. And that is the point. I watch these videos where people yell and scream, I know my rights. But when you ask them, do they? No. Do they comprehend what's going on? No. And that is the point that is so sad. Because everybody wants to talk about things that they're claiming they know, but they don't know. They don't comprehend. And that's what gets people in trouble. And until people are willing to stand up and learn and educate themselves, and yes, it is going back to school. I've had a few people that have told me, I'm not going to do that because that's like going back to school. And I'm like, well, how are you supposed to protect your family? And I mean, I always love it when people say, I'll hire an attorney. All right, go give them $5,000 and get nothing done. And that's what realistically happens. People do that. They go hire people, you know, to protect themselves. And that is the point that most people don't comprehend, and they don't get the point that it is a reality of what's going on. That's like taxes. Taxes are voluntary. I mean, there's tons and tons of videos that even show you it's voluntary. Theft by Deception is a wonderful video on YouTube to watch. Then you have like Exhibit 11.004, the interview with former IRS commissioner. And he goes in, well, you're going to go by a law that, you know, was done a few years back, and you're going to trust that instead of me? Well, yeah, because the IRS is a British organization. They're not even a government corporation or agency of the United States. They are controlled and run by the British government through the Vatican. And so when you pay your state and federal income tax, and people think it goes to your local structure, it goes to the Vatican. It goes to the Queen of England. And, you know, we've talked about that many times here. And we produce the evidence itself for people to comprehend. But I just find it amazing when you sit there and you show them A, B, C, and D, and they still want to argue the point because they're trying to justify in their own mind what they're doing wrong. You know, instead of just saying, okay, I'm doing it wrong, let me figure out how to solve the issue and move on. And this is one of the main reasons why I serve these sheriffs these affidavits. We want to know if they're lawful or legal. And we have a right to know this, if they're lawful or legal. And so we want them to come back. And I do have a letter that I've got from, I believe it was Josephine or Jackson County. The only one I've received so far, and they've got their legislative council, their district attorney going through it with their people, and they want to verify things, and they're being shocked. I know that it's a buzzword going around. Every letter that I've sent out goes to the Sheriff Association of the state of Oregon, so that way nobody could be blindsided. They can't call me and tell me that, you blindsided me again. I heard that a lot up at the Capitol when I was doing stuff. Of course, I'm not going to tell them before I put evidence in public records, before I do something. But this is the one thing that when it comes down to it, how do we solve these issues? We've got issues to solve. Now, the other point is getting men and women to stand up and back it up. Now, with what we've put together on the sheriffs, we need you to put it in your state, your county, and pass it around. I don't care if you change my name, put your name on it, and do it that way. That's not an issue for me. No, because once it gets out, that's what's going to start changing. Once people start standing up on this. And then when your public servants don't respond, if they don't respond, the other ones don't respond to me in the 20-day that I gave them, I'll file with the Secretary of State, the State Attorney General, and we'll see what happens. All right, but at least I know it's filed. And yesterday I've got an interesting phone call from the Department of Terrorism, and it was interesting because I was talking to the lady, and she goes, well, Homeland Security, and she's like, you keep sending this stuff to us, and I'm like, yeah, I want to make sure it's on record. She goes, well, yeah, it's on record, but we're looking at it, but there's really nothing we could do about it. I said, well, okay, so domestic terrorism is legal then. So that's what you just told me, so I just want to confirm it's legal. Sometimes I wish I had an online tape recorder because I would love to tape some of these things to air some of these conversations that I have with these public servants, because some of them are really ridiculous, and some of them are very interesting when you talk to them, because then sometimes you realize that these public servants that think they're educated, but they have no concept of the Constitution. They have the knowledge of their manual, but they don't have the Constitution knowledge. Everybody keeps going, I know the Constitution, I have rights, but do you, when it really comes down to it? That's the point. Do you know how to apply the Constitution on your behalf? Most people don't. And so that's why it's so important, and if you go on to Oregon.trackers and go to research, just click on research itself. And you'll see the counties that have been served. You can actually click on the counties that have been served, and you can read what I've served the county. And that's what I would recommend, that you read what I served the county, so this way you folks comprehend and see what the truth is. Because if we don't see the truth and stand up to the truth, we're all losers. If for the religious people, you want to talk about Jesus is coming and all this stuff, well, prove it then. The only way that's going to happen if you stand up instead of bowing on your knees and praying, because that doesn't do anything that I've seen. Doesn't do anything that I've seen. But when people start standing up together and, walking together and filing their paperwork together, I do see the changes with that. I have seen that move mountains, too, in a sense. In a philosophy sense. But that's the one thing that people need to look at their own selves of how they're looking to succeed, of what their goal is to accomplish, from a traffic ticket to assault, police breaking out your windows. And remember, when they do that, that's property damage. You can sue the cop personally. If they take your vehicle into impound, that's grand theft auto. But then again, the other side of the coin, everybody says, I got rights to travel, but do you have an autograph or signature, by a senator that gives you that authority under the law? And that's what I actually put in this affidavit to the sheriffs. God, all of a sudden, excuse me, I've got it. That's what I put in this affidavit to the sheriff. And I asked him, even with Dexter Johnson, own statement, Legislative Council of Oregon, his own statement that says we're a republic form of government and we're running by a democracy, not a Republican form of government. He even admits you have the right to travel, but the Democrats want to rape, rob, and pillage you in the name of God. They're religious. Go to the Democrat site. Read what they put up there for their Christianity beliefs. Yeah, I mean, this is real, folks. I mean, this is not a joke. When you go to court, I mean, you know, if you have sex out in public, oh, that could be a crime if you get caught by a cop. You know, with, you know, your better half. I mean, you know, it's ridiculous, and that's the point. You don't do it in the street. You know, if you're up in the woods or something like that, everybody does that, or on the beach or something like that, you know, but they do it very secluded. You know, this is the one thing that we have to start being responsible. Instead of sitting there hiding behind democracy as people do. So the main point is that with this affidavit that I put in, freedom request, you know, and that's going to take people to back it up. Because if you folks don't start backing this stuff up, and then when you guys end up in FEMA camps, and then you're sitting there bitching and your children are in FEMA camps, go look in that little middle plate that hang on those FEMA camps that they call mirrors. Look at yourself in a mirror and realize what you did to yourself. See, if you don't stand up, you're the problem. You're the one destroying your children. And everybody wants to blame somebody else instead of themselves. Sorry, folks. I've been there myself. I screwed up in my own situations, and I had to blame myself. And that's the reality. Once you can sit there and accept what you have done and realize that you're the responsible party, and how are you going to make the solution to resolve it? And that is the main problem right there. How do you want the solution to be? Why are you doing a solution when you shouldn't have been there in the first place, if that makes sense? And we do a lot of this stuff to ourselves. And then we want to bitch to everybody else that everybody else did this to us. And that is the saddest part that goes on around ourselves as well. Because everybody wants to bitch for what they've done to themselves. I mean, it's like this guy calling up the police department want to turn in a stray. Why would you call the police department up to turn in a stray? That's the one thing. When you call the police to your home, you're asking for trouble. You are asking for the problems. That's what you are doing. You're asking for the problems. And people don't realize, you know, the police are not there to help you. They're to make an income. You know, every time they go to a domestic abuse case, who gets arrested? 90% of the time, the man. Doesn't matter. If they're yelling and screaming, he gets arrested. That is the problem we have today. You know, the man gets arrested for having disagreement because the woman doesn't know how to talk to the man and the man doesn't know how to talk to the woman. And so we end up with these problems. And this is one of the main reasons why I served them, this structure, because we need to know the truth of what oath that these men and women are going by. We need to know what they are doing. And it's your responsibility to make it happen. You know, everybody wants to wait for somebody else to do something for them. And that is the problem that we've been living for generations. Generations we've been living that problem. Everybody wants somebody else to handle their problems, to solve their problems, to make their problems disappear, to make their problems work. And it doesn't work that way. And as soon as you folks start putting that piece together, we solve a lot of problems. You know, and when it comes to taxes, Aaron Russo has a wonderful video on that all over the internet. And that's called Freedom of, what was it? Freedom of, I'll remember here in a minute. But Freedom for Fascism. But that's the one thing that when it comes down to this stuff, that's why when we're serving these elected and public servants, that is the most important thing, serving these public servants to do their servitude. And until you start standing up on this, it ain't going to happen. So, yes, basically, when it comes down to it, I put myself as a target, serving all these sheriffs across the state. But see, I don't care. I don't care about them. Actually, I do care about them, but I don't care about their servitude of what they're doing to we the people when they're rape, robbing, and pillaging. And they call that acceptable. That's what disturbs me, when these people call this stuff acceptable. And then people get away with criminal activities. And they do. And so how are we going to solve it? I gave you a couple ideas how to solve it. And so we do have solutions to solve it. But what are you going to do to protect your bloodline? It's your bloodline. You know, I don't have nothing to do with your bloodline. And that is the one thing that comes down to it. I bring the ideas to you. I bring the suggestions. I'm not the only one. There's other men and women that have done the same thing. And we all have to start working together. See, democracy is going to destroy you. And that is the one thing, until you comprehend democracy is going to destroy you and is destroying you right now today. And everybody keeps going, we need a democracy. Well, democracy gives your public servants the authority over you to rape you, to rob you, to steal from you, and to assault you and murder you. That's what democracy really is, truly is. And see, when you don't comprehend what democracy is, and then you put your children in these positions without reading the law, statute, codes, and administrative rules. The law is the Constitution, not statute, codes, and administrative rules. There is a big difference, a major difference. And that is the one thing that people need to realize. There is a difference. And so once you comprehend the difference, and you realize that the difference is there to protect you, then you have to start reacting on it. And that's what we need to work together. That's why we put this stuff out to educate you guys. You know, I mean, I'm not just wasting my life. I mean, sometimes I do feel like it. I've got other men and women that I've talked to who help men and women out there. And there's times where they feel that they're literally wasting their life. You know, so, I mean, this is the one thing that we have problems with today. You know, I mean, and we have literally problems today with this stuff. And I'm going to get into a couple things here in a minute, but I want to make sure that, you know, you folks are starting to comprehend that with the Constitution law, not religion gives you rights. Religion gives you a belief. Religion gives you your feel-good thought patterns, your feel-good, I'm just going to leave it at that. It gives you your feel-good stuff. And so if you don't sit there and start comprehending what's going on, then how do you expect to have anything protecting you? But, I mean, that is the main thing. How do you expect to have protection? And so that is the one thing that you have to do that. You have to start protecting your family, your bloodline. And yes, your bloodline means a lot. Your bloodline means if you're lawful or legal in this country. Legal is democracy. Lawful is the Constitution. And that's the one thing. Once you start comprehending and separating the difference out, you get to know the truth. And that's what you want to know, is the truth. I mean, it's like people sit there, and I've had people that told me on the phone or emailed me, hey, if you talk about taxes and you don't participate and you're going to go to jail. No, been there, done it, wrote the letters to the IRS, filed a claim, and that's where you folks need to learn how to file the paperwork on your elected and public servants. Because when they're harassing you, threatening you, you file criminal charges on them. That is your responsibility to file criminal charges. See, if you don't do that, you're letting these men and women rape your friends, rape your neighbors. And then when you sit there and then it comes your time, and if that happens to you and you're yelling and screaming in the middle of the street and nobody's coming to help you, well, I wonder why. So think about these things. I mean, I really want you to folks to think about some of these things that, is putting these other people in positions, and think about these things, how to solve some of these issues. We do have a lot of information on new.org and trackers. I recommend people do take the time to read it, because once you start reading it and you start realizing the laws, that's the real laws. That's the one thing you need to realize, what real law is. Now, the one thing that I would like to bring to your attention with the state of Oregon now, apparently there's a new law going into place, but it's not going to go in place for 5 years, and that is ORS 336.057. And it says the schools shall now, beginning no later than opening the 8th grade, shall continue through the 9th and 12th grade, required all public universities, I like that, universities and all state and local institutions that provide education for patrons and or inmates to extend determination by the superintendent of public instructions. They are supposed to start teaching, the Constitution in the schools. But the point is, what Constitution are they going to teach? Are they going to teach the United States Constitution? Or are they going to teach the Democracy Constitution of 1871? And see, we don't know these things. And so that is the point that we have to sit there and put together, learn these things, learn how to defend our bloodline. And the best way to do it is learn the statute, codes, and administrative rules and the Constitution. I get people all the time that tell me, Ed, stay away from that. Go to the private side. Well, I've been to the private side more than likely all the time. And that's more likely what I do. But also, too, it depends. If you don't file criminal charges on these guys who kidnap you, who take your cars, grand theft auto, your covered wagons, say, that's called grand theft auto when they take your stuff, too. They're not exonerated. And everybody says, these men and women, they have rights. They can do whatever they want. No, they cannot. And I'm going to read you some stuff here in a minute. But they cannot do this stuff. They're getting away with it. Who are allowing them to get away with it? I mean, how many people have seen assaults when they turn their back on it? When they watch somebody being assaulted, they turn their back on it. So that is the one thing that is so sad, how people turn their back on these things. And they allow this stuff to happen. And so when they allow it to happen, and then when it happens to them, they're wondering why, this happened to them. Come on, folks, you know why it happened to you. It comes in rotation. What do they call that? Karma. So when you stop fighting each other and stop arguing with each other and start learning your rights, even if you're an immigrant, you have privileges, and the only way you basically have coexistence rights, so long as you pay your taxes and your service fees and all that stuff, your driver's license, insurance. Because, see, our families died for that stuff in this country. So we have a right to it. We didn't come from a foreign country. We didn't come here to be privileged. See, that's the one thing that most people don't comprehend this stuff. They think that it's a privilege to be here, and it is for immigrants. And that's the fact. It is a privilege for religious people, that come from other countries. And these people go, they affected my religious belief and my religious right. No. You know, I hate to tell you that, but lawful Americans have religious rights. You have privileges. So when you sit there and abuse our wording, our structure, our Constitution, our family and bloodlines, you know, I mean, it's like when you watch these men and women that are out there getting away with rape, rob, and murder, and people don't stand up to it. That's what amazes me, how people want to whine, cry, bitch, and moan and groan, but they don't want to stand up to it. And then when shit hits the fan, you know, they're not defending their neighbors when they watch stuff. I mean, when I watch some of these videos and some of the stuff that I see what's really going on, it is very disturbing. Totally disturbing. And so that is the one thing, you know, that we need to realize what we are going to do for our children, you know. And it's your responsibility to do for your child first, you know, not your family. If it ain't your family, what are you doing? And if you don't protect your family, who's to blame? You are. That is the one thing. You are to blame. And as soon as you accept the responsibility, you can move forward. And then you can start getting things accomplished. And we all know what that's like. You think that you're the only one that, you know, took a while to learn this stuff, put the pieces together? No, it took some of us, you know, 10, 20, 30 years. And so you have to have patience, too. When you're reading this stuff and people say, well, I can't read. I've had many people say, I can't comprehend, or no, their wording, I don't understand what this means. Well, go to your dictionary. Look it up. You could even type on the internet, Black Law Dictionary Edition, whatever you want. Bouvier Legal Dictionary is up there. Remember, all this structure came from a foreign country. Americans didn't write this stuff. This is all foreigners that put this stuff together. So that is the one thing to realize. And this goes back to the 13th century when the legal system began. And that's the one thing you have to realize. It goes back to the 13th century when the legal system began. It started and ended in England. It is England structure. It is religious structure. I've been type in legal Roman law of Rome, of the Vatican, and you'll see the history. But the churches don't want you to know the real history of what's going on because they know that you're going to have guilt feelings, complexes, and that's how they make their money, called gifts, donations. It's the same thing if you actually read the tax law or you actually read your tax form that you get your when you file your taxes every year. If you actually read on the little bottom line, it's just a little line there that says it's a gift to the Queen of England. And that's the one thing, every time you pay taxes, it goes to the England and the Vatican. It does not stay in this country. The people go, oh, yes, it does. And then the money that they make from when you go into the courts and you pay 25 cents of filing paper and all this from the courts, and people think that money stays there. Technically, it don't. So they're running everything off of your birth certificate bond. And so when you pay those structures, that's what they do their parties on, because those are called a gift to them from the Vatican and the Queen of England and your congressional courts. Your Congress gives it to them so they can have their parties. That's why it's so important when you're filing these affidavits. That's why you want their budgets. This is why you're asking for their information. That's why I want to know if they're lawful or illegal. And these public employees, most of the time, don't answer and respond. And then you have to file with them, with the state and the feds. And it's like, and this is the one thing that I do plan on hearing. Well, I don't know, maybe the feds are going to start telling me, well, there's nothing they could do. You're going to have to go to the state attorney general. Well, we already know Rosenblum here in the state of Oregon. I mean, I've got a letter from her basically telling me it's okay for cops to murder you It's not called murder, it's called a homicide. So every time you hear homicide, that's usually a cop or public employee, 80% of the time, who kills another member of our country or an immigrant. That's what homicide means. Accepted murder. Look it up. I'm not making this up. I mean, look it up. See, this stuff is there, but people don't look it up. They just hear these buzzwords. And so they go along with it. I was talking to another gentleman 2 days ago about this. And he was shocked when he was pulling up information. And I said, well, does that prove to you? I mean, you went by the congressional records. You know, you brought it up yourself. And I'm on the phone with him walking through some sites. And I said, so is that a fact? Are you reading what I was suggesting to you? And he was just blown away. He doesn't believe it. It's like back when Clinton was president, when they passed the administrative rule that they could kill Americans, murder them. And that's what, the terrorist Obama was doing with drones. So, I mean, and all that's been in the newspaper with Obama and the drones and stuff. So I'm just telling you, it's been in the newspaper, you know, because that is the one thing that people need to read and comprehend what these things mean, what they are doing, how they're destroying your families. I've been watching, it's been interesting. I've been watching a couple of these programs, new ones, you know, and I've been shocked by this one program called The Modern Family. And they're promoting gay and lesbian. You know, they're promoting stupidity through the program. And people are watching this stuff. They are living by it. They're just, I just cannot believe people are just watching half this stuff. It's like, you know, Britain's Got Talent. We're not supposed to technically have anything to do with the British government. That is the constitutional in the dealing with the, I'm having a brain fart, the admiral. But I mean, we're not supposed to have anything to do with the British. You know, and that's why when people say Churchill was such a great man, Churchill was a double agent. He was a treasonous man to America. But for those who were making money, do they care? No. So that's the one thing you got to realize. To a lot of people, money is life to them. Money means more to them than you do in your own life. And it is separating these realities out. And knowing what the separation of lawful, legal, statute, codes, and administrative rules are. So that's the one thing when you do go on to new.org and trackers, or if you contact me, I'll make sure you get a copy of what I've served the county sheriffs. And we served them budgetary questions. You know, we served them what their lawful or legal authority is. We spelt it out for them. You know, because these men and women, how many times have you guys spoke to a public servant and says, I can't answer that, or that's not part of what the deal is, and when it is. So I served them with the questions. I started out at 13 pages, and then I ended up about, I think it was the last 31, but I had to put the rights to travel, the rights to hunt and fish. I had to put the laws of the law that says you have the right to feed your family without a hunting and fishing license. I put the laws in with the state of Oregon. Their own administrative rule says you don't need a driver's license. So the sheriffs know this stuff right now. I don't care if they say they don't know it. They've been served this affidavit. It's all in it. You know, it's been served to some of the media and other people around. So nobody can say they don't know that they can sit there and how many times have you heard that a cop will tell you, well, I just done what I was trained to do. Bull. They are trained in the Constitution. They are trained how to get you to comply with them. It's called psychology, and they get that training with their programs. They get that training right out of the academy itself. So when people sit there and say, I don't know this and I don't know that, and I can't comprehend or I don't understand what I read. Well, I do give people some credit if they are mentally retarded. You know, you got to give people credit on that. Yes, I said the dirty word that everybody says don't say that one. I'm not going to say these pretty fluffy words that the Democrats want to do. So that's the point. Kids are so pampered today, and then when you say a rough word to them, they cry, they whine, they moan. And that is the problem we are living today. The kids are too damn weak. They have no strength. They have no backbone. They have no education. You know, that's why I was glad to see this thing. But see, that thing on the Constitution, I don't know a Constitution, but I know back in 2001 in the Oregon State Capitol, there was a bill on that to teach the organic Constitution. And the Democrats flipped out over that one, literally flipped out over it. Yeah, that's the one thing is, how do these people get away with the crap they're getting away with? Because we allow it. And that is the one thing. It's a fact. You allow it. I can't say I mean, when you read my Sheriff's Freedom Information Act, you'll see what I'm talking about. But people allow this. See, this is the one thing. It's like Africa. All right, you want to talk about what's going on? Africa just got over 500 million guns confiscated out of Africa because they're going to start executing these people, you know, because Africa is so dry. They're trying to get the people off the land out there so they can start growing food again or capitalizing the farms again so they own the farms. See, they don't want the public to have rights. They don't want public to have public land. They don't want you to have your rights. And I mean, that's the one thing when I do talk to some of these people, they're going, well, you're a slave, Ed, and you can't change it. Yes, I have. It's filing your affidavits, making sure they go to the police department. That's why when I put this letter out, they know it. You know, I even put the affidavit in this letter to sheriffs because that way they click on that. That's what was done at the Oregon State House and Senate that I had filed in the Secretary of State's office. And even though that some of these people still come after and harass me because they know what I'm doing, but they don't want the truth known because they like their $150,000, $200,000 a year that these cops make. And when a cop tells you he doesn't make $100,000 a year, he lies. Because every time he goes to court, and he gets paid for it. I've had a cop says, well, I go to court on my own time. That's a lie. That's called overtime pay. Every time a cop goes to court for a traffic ticket, that's overtime pay right there. It is knowing the structure of how it works. And once you know how it works, then you can start solving your own problems. When it comes into it, you can solve your own problems really quick, knowing how the corporation works. I mean, we are dealing with a corporation. Corporations are dead entities. They don't exist. They only exist on paper. And that's the one thing when I went in recently dealing with the doctors, and I pull out my red pen and I'm writing all reserve. I'm scratching out their stuff. That doesn't apply to me. And then one of the nurses finally looked at me and goes, hey, you know, I've been watching you for a long time, and you always refuse the writing in blue or red pens or blue or black pens that we have here. And you're always scribbling on this stuff. And I said, well, isn't it a legal contract? And the nurse just paused for a second, looked at me, and she goes, you know something, I never thought about it that way. And I said, yeah, you're trying to put me in a legal contract for your retirement, for your bonus plan, for your structure. I don't want to participate in that. You know, by the structure of your law, our law, we're supposed to have medical services that's provided to us. That's law. Which I am fortunate and blessed for that because I just went through that too recently, back in July 8th, when I sat there and was on life support system for 6 straight days. I was hooked up on life support. So, I mean, I do know what these things happen. I do know how these things happen. And so how do you solve it? Write criminal affidavits. And if you don't know, we've got some examples on new.org and trackers. There's a lot of people on YouTube that has a lot of good ideas on this stuff. And if you haven't watched any of Rob Ryder's videos, I do recommend them very strongly. You know, I mean, Rob is very religious. All right? I don't have a problem with religious people. But I do know that he knows what he's putting out there. I do know he does know his knowledge. I do know what he's telling you is a fact when he does tell you this stuff. When he does do that, and if you're in Georgia, that's the one thing where he's from, and he brings out a lot of good stuff, and he brings up even how to own yourself, how to file to own you, so you are not a slave. And he brings up things like that on YouTube video and walks you through the process. And the one thing when a public servant and you're filing what they call a criminal complaint, fill out their paperwork, do the criminal complaint. But always make sure the affidavit is behind it, you know, of what they have caused you, personal and property damage. It is your point to get that out there on the affidavit. And if you have medical problems, write the affidavit to the hospital or what you're going through. See, these things are your responsibility. And everybody will say, well, I'll just hire an attorney. Well, good luck with that, because when you hire an attorney, you give your rights over to that man or woman. He can put you in jail. And that's why if you watch Interstate 60, I do recommend that movie very highly. But when you watch that movie, you'll see that's why they always keep you in jail, because they make money. Jails are private corporations. They are not of we the people. Jails used to be owned by the people, but in recent years, they privatized them. So when they privatize the jails, you have no rights. And even though that they're supposed to not fingerprint you until you've been convicted of a crime, and that's actually what the law says. They cannot fingerprint you, take your photo until you've been convicted of a crime. Not a statute, code, administrative rules, and this is how these men and women are raking in the money. So that's why we're going to start going through Sunday night, dealing with the Bill of Rights. We're going to have to start going through that. I'll do an introduction tomorrow, and then the following Sunday, we're going to start hitting each number on the Bill of Rights, walk through it. And that's the only way that people are going to learn, because these schools ain't going to teach you. And when it deals with police officers, there's a wonderful video on YouTube called Don't Talk to the Police. It's done by a law professor. And I believe that we have that up on new.org and tracker. That is a wonderful video. He tells you. He even has his former cops that were buddies that come in that are private lecturers now on the police industry, you know, come in and explain, this is how a cop does it. This is how a public servant will talk to you, how to put you in their jurisdiction. Because remember, you have to consent to the cop, you know. And then when a cop assaults you, that's not consent, and you have to write that you were assaulted under Corpus Delicti, Title 18, 3771. And that's the one thing that I've been told by several judges in the past. If you don't put Corpus Delicti in your filing, you are not the injured man or woman. You are a dead identity. You are the strong man. You're the corporation. And so they don't have to do anything for you. And so we don't want that anymore. We want to make sure that rights are being done. We want to pass out the information to others. We want to make sure that they know the law. They're getting the law. And see, that's the point here. Once you start accepting the reality of the life that we are living, right now we are living no different than Nazi Germany and Germany today. No different. Remember, they used to walk in and take the kids without a warrant, go put them in their armies. That's what they're doing today. Today they sit there and you walk in and take the kids and they put them in DHS, and then the children are raped so that way they're in psychological trauma for the rest of their life. And the men and women know it because they're looking at the income They're doing that because they know the income is for their children, because if their children don't know it and they get taught correctly in their minds by their psychological evaluations and their mind teachers, that mind control teachers and all this other crap. This stuff is nothing new. It's been going on for some time. And that is the problem that we still living today. I mean, it's going on worse today than I've ever seen it. I mean, I grew up in the Bay Area of San Francisco, where they were saying back in the 60s and 70s, all these gang wars. But let me tell you, I never really saw anything like that. When I grew up there, I used to go through the areas, what they called the gang areas back then. So long as you didn't mess with them, nobody had an issue. And that is what most people don't get today. You don't sit there and harass people. You don't start harassing people and opening up doors that you don't want opened up. And yes, it is difficult when you see criminal activity happening. Do you want to get involved or don't you want to get involved? But that is your responsibility, your decision making, your conscience of what, why, and how. So you can't blame others for your conscience or somebody else's conscience. You just have to figure it out, what's going to work. How's this going to work? How's that going to happen? And stepping out of the movie, watch the production and see what works the best. And that's the one thing that most people are not comprehending today, how to solve these problems. But they don't want to read. They want somebody to hold their hand and solve the problems for them. And that is the one thing that is so sad. You see it all the time, that people want to have you solve their problems. And so that's why I just decided to put this affidavit out to the sheriffs. I want them to prove their oath. And in that way, I could put in the newspaper, there is no lawful or legal oath that these people take. And so what's the point of dealing with them, and what's the point of paying them their salaries? There's no point. So as long as I pay for the newspaper ad, they'll run it the way I want it, so long as I pay for it. So for the newspaper ads, I got to come up with $5,000 for that alone to put it in 10, 12, 15 newspapers, in a 6x6 section. So, I figure, I'll do a pay site, I guess, for something like that, so we can get this stuff out. Because we need to get it out, and the newspapers will run that so long as I take the liability. And I've already done stuff like that a couple years ago. So there was no issue with that so long as I took the legal part, but I always put it as a legal notice, and I always put my disclaimer in it too. And that screws them, and the newspaper likes the disclaimer because it protects them. See, when you're doing some of this stuff, you have to protect those who are doing with you to protect them. And see, that is our responsibility, to protect our friends or neighbors. And when people sit there and go, oh, we're not supposed to do this or that, that's what frustrates me at times. People listen to people that they don't comprehend what reality is. They don't live in reality. It's like so many people get falsely accused and end up in jail, even of serious crimes. Why? They estimate, even the legal system states right off the bat, they figure 30% of the people in jail right now today are innocent and shouldn't be there. That's an actual fact they know about. But the guesstimate is up to 70% that people that are in jail shouldn't be in jail. But by their own statistics, 30 to 40% should not be in jail. But their guesstimate is 70% shouldn't be in jail, because everybody's in jail because of traffic violations. And that's the one thing that too. What are we going to jail for traffic violations? That is the one thing I don't get. We're going to jail for traffic violations. The people have been shot and murdered over traffic violations. So how do we solve these problems? We have to make it public. We have to work together. We got to put affidavits together. That's the whole point of standing together, making sure that the reality of these things come forward, called a republic form of government. Not Republican. Republican was a creation of the Republic Party dealing with the Democrat and democracy after the Civil War. That's how we ended up with our two-party system after the Civil War, to the best of my knowledge. And so when we do this stuff, and you're letting democracy control your family, to control your thinking, control your religious beliefs, because I mean, like I tell everybody, and that's the way I believe, because the Constitution is my Bible. My religious belief is the Constitution. You got your book, I got my paper, because the Constitution is very small on paper. It's not a book that makes you walk around things. But we have to be responsible and respect one another. I mean, if you have your religious belief, hey, I support it 1,000%. Constitution says you have the right of freedom of religion. And we're going to be getting into that conversation of freedom of religion one night. And I want to see how many people are willing to stand up and really speak on that one. Because I've got so many people that will sit there and argue religion with me, but they don't even know the Constitution, but they want to argue religion. And I always find that stupefying, because they want to argue about something that they believe they know is the religious point of view, called the Bible, but they have no concept of the Constitution. And how are they supposed to know what their freedom is? I watch kids on the street yell and scream, I have a Constitution right. You can't do this to me. And so I'm thinking about, we need to put together a protesting package, with rights in it, so people know their lawful and legal rights when they protest. Because I think that's the next step. We need to do something like that, because when it comes down to it, if we don't do it, who else is going to do it? Everybody else is trying to make money. They keep like all these gurus that says you have a right to your freedom, your rights, but they don't sit there and give you the correct information. And then when they tell you that, they give you just a little piece. I've watched people pay up to $50,000, $60,000 to these gurus online, that ended up in jail, and we guarantee our paperwork. And then when you try to get back a hold of them, when your paperwork fails, you never can have contact with them. You don't exist to them anymore. And that is the one thing that is a reality. And there's people out there that maybe you even know that some people have done that and caused very terminal damages to their own bloodline or their own family by doing that. I mean, I know lots of people that have called the police department dealing with an out-of-control kid or child. And then they ended up in some program or got arrested for child abuse for yelling at their own kid. Well, if you can't yell at your own kid, who you got a right to yell at then? But, I mean, you're entitled to have your bloodline, and that's why I do recommend that you file to own your bloodline. And if you don't file to own your bloodline, and then when it comes up, because remember, when you file to own your own bloodline and you do it correctly, now you have rights. And a judge has to go by that contract because of Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. It's contract law. But international law didn't become part of any of this stuff until 1967. Or 1963, excuse me. And that's the one thing that folks need to comprehend, that this stuff is very new to this country when it comes down to it. Because most men, even in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, bartered. They didn't know everybody have a paycheck. That's the one thing, even until the paper money became in this country, and when it really came down to it, not the middle of the 18th century, because paper money was there. But I'm talking about after when they did the Bankruptcy Act, the British government, called the Vatican, did the Bankruptcy Act. And you have to realize that the Vatican is controlling your court system. The Vatican has the authority to change any law that they are administrative rules, statute code, administrative law that they want to change. And they do the changes. They do it without the people's knowledge or permission because you allow it. And people say, well, Ed, I don't allow anything. It's not my responsibility. I didn't do it. Yes, you did. You didn't stand up to the tyranny that was happening around you. So that's the one thing. When tyranny happens around you, you need to stand up and speak out on it. You need to stand up and say no. But most people do not do that. That's the saddest part. So by serving the sheriffs, that's the one thing we're going to be getting out, the new information when I serve them. Any letters that I do receive back from these men and women, we'll get them posted up on new.org and trackers. So you can read these own words of these men and women. So you can see I'm not telling you what I'm saying. You can read their own words. And that's what you want to be able to read their own words. You want their words to speak to you. You want their words to convict them. And that is the one thing. When you do have a conversation with elected and public employees, I recommend tape recording it. And if you got a judge, and you always file that you're going to tape record into a court before you get there. And if they tell you you cannot tape record, then that's not a court of record. That is a private corporation court. So it's knowing how the courts work, knowing the structure of a court compared to what you think a court is. So that's the whole point, doing your lawful and legal research, knowing what is real, knowing what's not real, and how do we expect to educate the children if we're not educating ourselves to tell these kids? So that is the main point right there that we have to deal with. So we'll get this stuff out. Like I said, if you want the copy of the well, yeah, and that's true. You don't have to tell them you're recording. That is a fact. But that is up to you to decide. And the law says you don't have to tell a cop that you're recording him. You don't have to tell anybody you're recording them, especially when you're on a phone conversation with them. And that is the one thing that is very true. I've had public employees that have gone after me after I played their tape recording conversation publicly. You didn't have a permission and a right. Yes, I did, because you're a public servant, and here's the law. You know, you're not above the law. That's where a lot of these public servants think they're above the law. And so when these public servants think they're above the law and you consent to them and allow them to get away with it, you're the one consenting and allowing them to get away with it. And that is the point. When you go to court, you're allowing them to get away with it because you're going to court. You're not having a public, when you have a public pretender defend you, you give that man the right to keep you in jail locked up. And that is a fact. So anyhow, I'm going to open it up for questions or thoughts, and anybody else has got something going on that they like to bring up. And we'll go from there. And just want to make sure that you guys realize the sheriffs will be finished served tonight or tomorrow. And because I have 8 more apparently that I missed, so I will make sure that gets accomplished tonight or in the morning. My morning, not your morning, because most people get up at 6 or 5, and I get up when I get up. But that's the one thing about life. We're supposed to be enjoying life. We shouldn't be working ourselves to the death of bones for personal gain for the corporation that we're not receiving anything for. Oh, that's right. You get a paycheck, so you're not considered a slave anymore. You're getting housing, so you're not considered a slave anymore. And if you allegedly own your home, you don't own your home unless you own your home by filing it and getting out of the tax system. Because if you're still in the tax system, you are the rentee of the Queen of England. So anyhow, let's open up the floor, see if we got any questions or thoughts.
All participants are unmuted.
Anybody would like to throw something in tonight?
That guy that you were talking about with the dog?
Yeah.
He didn't. I don't think he made it home. I think they called the police on him when he tried to give the dog to the shelter. That's where he got killed at.
Oh, okay. Oh, he got killed at the shelter?
That's what I was given to understand. Yes.
Okay, because I saw the video then. That is so sad. You know, he's trying to go to the shelter, turn a dog in, and you get murdered for turning a dog into the shelter.
Well, he didn't have the claim was he didn't have a proper ID on him.
Oh, so you can turn something in. I've never had that problem in Oregon.
Yeah.
They just take the dog in and then figure they can find an owner, or they can't, and in 2 weeks they euthanize them. That is sad. I appreciate the confirmation on that one and clarifying my statements.
And I'm going to send you something on the Facebook wall right now. You need to look at it. Listen to what this cop is telling you. Okay? You really need to hear this, what this cop is saying. Hold on. I'm trying to get it going right now.
Okay. Is that on this case?
No, this is something else.
Okay. So, but that is so sad. You know, if you don't have their state ID, you're not a corporation, man, so you have no rights to use our services, that they have a contract for we the people, or we the private citizens, or the private Americans.
Hey, Ed.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, something almost similar to that happened to me. I went to go get some medication from CVS, and I hadn't updated my driver's license, and it was expired. And I asked, where's this? I can't remember what it was, but it was a certain type of medication for somebody who's got who has allergic reaction. And,
right.
They turned around and told me, "Oh, well, we've got it back here behind the counter." And I was like, "Okay, could I get one?" They said, "Oh, I need to see your ID." And I was like, "Okay." I thought it was kind of weird because I'm like, I'm definitely over 21. So, but she saw that it was expired. She's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you can't use this. It has to be current." I was like, "Yeah, but all I want is just one box of medication here." Yeah, but we have to control it. It's law. According to the Texas statutes, it's law. And so they wouldn't let me have it unless I got my driver's license updated and everything. So,
yeah, but see, you could put an affidavit in and put it in the courts and have a judge certify that. And there are people, and including Legal Deception has some information on that on their Facebook site. See, there are ways to go around it, which they don't like to have you know to do it. Yeah, and that's what I've done. I mean, I didn't go back to the court and have it done. I had it done, and then I went to the Oregon State Legislation and had it certified and put in their records, so it's not the court, it's above the court. So there are solutions to how to solve the issues, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, it makes. The thing is that still to deny people to be able to get certain medicine or to even turn in a freaking animal, you know, because you don't have a proper ID or whatever. I think. Well,
the reason why they do that when you turn in an animal, let's say the animal comes up and they say it was stolen, so then they're going to go after you for theft of property. And so that's what they do. They set people up in the system that way to go after them and accuse them falsely of crimes that they didn't commit. They're trying to be a good American, trying to solve an issue, but then all of a sudden they get charged with a crime. I mean,
Yep.
Go ahead.
I said, "Yep, you're right."
You know, and it's deliberately setting people up, and these men and women know it. How do you think they bring in their income? That's how they get their parties paid for, their extra vacations paid for. It's like I posted up a video and I watched the video where a cop even admitted on YouTube, hey, I like killing people because I get paid vacations. And he said it on YouTube video, and he admits it. He's already got 4 murders under his belt on it.
Ed?
Yeah.
I'm going to play this tape. I hope you guys can hear it. I want you to hear what this cop says.
Okay. Go ahead. Let's hear it.
Let's see if you can hear it.
That's breaking up real bad.
How about now?
I don't know. Send it to me on Facebook, and I'll try to see if we can get it up.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, let me go Let me go reset my Facebook because I haven't seen. Yeah. Oh, come on, computer. Yeah, it's still scratchy. It's unhearable. Let me go to my Facebook site and let me see if we can figure that one out and get it up. Because I mean, that's the one thing I eventually want to be able to play is that one cop admitting, and there's several videos up there on YouTube where cops have stated that as their fact that they like killing people because they get paid vacations.
Well, this is a cop basically telling people that he doesn't have to follow the Constitution, that he took an oath to.
Well, see, that's the point. What oath did he take? Does anybody have a certification of his oath? So we know in general they're supposed to take an oath, but they take 2 oaths. One oath when they come out of the law enforcement training schools that they go through. They actually do take a constitutional oath. Then when they take an oath to the city, county, or state, they're taking another oath under administrative rules of admiralty or military law. And so that is the one thing of making clarification of their oath of servitude. Because if they haven't taken the correct oath of servitude, that's the problems we do have what goes on today. That's why when I wrote that letter to the sheriffs, we're putting it out to the sheriffs first, because they're supposedly, allegedly supposed to be the only law enforcement that we have that is true. And that is the one thing that is bullshit. They don't have a right. And so that is the one thing that when these men and women get away with this crap, oh, come on, computer. I hate it when my computer does things on their own. I got to get this thing cleaned out by somebody who knows what the hell they're really doing compared to me. Because that's a fact. Let me see if I could send this out to... Let me go ahead and share this and see if we can get this played with his own statements. Because I'd much rather play their own words than me talk about their words. Because that's the one thing, when you sit there and use their words against them, that's what hurts them. And I think I've seen this one too, and I'm going to pass this on to the producer and see if he might be able to do something with it. And this is the one thing that needs to be done when people hear this stuff. And, when they say they don't give a damn about the Constitution, that tells you that they're willing to shoot you on sight.
Yep.
And that's one thing. Go ahead.
I said, yep.
And that's the one thing that people need to realize, that these men and women get paid to murder you. They're not paid to protect you. I mean, in Oregon, we went through this 3 years ago where a woman called in on her disabled son. He was having a fit. He's mentally retarded. And when the cops drove up, he was irrational, non-responsive, acting, like a mentally retarded kid, flailing his arms around and stuff like this. And instead of trying to talk to the kid or even tackling the kid to cuff him, they just pulled out their gun and shot him.
Mm-hmm.
Right in front of his mother.
Yeah.
And that's called acceptable.
Well, you have to understand what happened in 1980. They used to operate under something called force continuum, and now they're operating under Hold on a second. Let me pull it up here. I forget the court case now. Hold on. I'll give it to you in just a second. Go ahead. Let me find it.
I'm passing this on right now, so hopefully we get this played, because that'd be good to hear his own words. And I'm passing this on Facebook to you, so see if he could play it so it's a lot better than what we got. It should be up on your wall right now.
I Freedom of Information Act, the Broward County Sheriff, on their use of force, okay? And they sent me this little 20-page document here. Basically, what they're saying is they're operating under a case law called Graham versus Connor, 490 U.S. 386, 1989. The Supreme Court held that the law enforcement use of force cases are to be judged by an objective reasonableness standard, but nobody knows what the hell that is, based upon the Fourth Amendment. Really, the use of force is to be judged from the perspective of a reasonable deputy under the same circumstances without the benefit of hindsight. The court clearly considered that deputies are often required to make split-second decisions, sometimes deadly decisions, in circumstances that are tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving. Yeah, right. You might want to look that up. It's called Graham versus Connor, 1989.
Yeah, you said you were going to send it to me. As soon as you do that, we'll make sure it's on the website. And that is the one. Go ahead.
I'll send you the BSO thing.
Okay. But this is the one thing that people have got to start realizing, that this is what they're getting away with. And then you wonder what happens in your own home when you call a public servant, you're having a domestic dispute or something, and a cop drives up and shoots your partner. And then you're going, well, I didn't call for that. Well, yes, you did. You called for a murder to solve the problem. See, cops are supposed to be problem solvers, as they say today, so they can use any force to stop the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they do.
Well, like I said, in 1989, they went from force continuum, all right, to this bullshit.
Right. And force continuing means that they had to be liable for their actions.
Well, force continuum means that they had to go a series of steps they had to do before they could just, before they could just pull their gun out and shoot you. Now they can just pull their damn gun out and shoot your ass.
That's a fact. And then people wonder why their family members are being murdered.
Mm-hmm.
You see, it's cold-blooded murder. If you did it, you go to jail. But they do it. It's called a homicide, and it's acceptable. And I've been told that by the state attorney general here in Oregon. And that's not a fact. They're not supposed to get away with this stuff like that. But they are getting away with it because people allow it.
Well, if you listen very carefully, when they do something, they're always going back and saying they did not violate the policy and procedure manual of this department. Mm-hmm. They never tell you that they didn't break the law, because they're not operating under law. They're operating under their policy and procedure manuals,
right,
and their general orders. So as long as that cop, doesn't violate the policy and procedure manual, nothing's going to happen to him. There's the problem.
And that's the one thing. You can't ask a cop for his policy and procedure manual. He's supposed to have a pocket at all times.
He's also supposed to have his damn general orders, which is the military.
Yep. Well, that and the maritime courts that they go through, too.
Oh. Okay. We're not going to go there.
Stuff. And I can't believe people accept this stuff the way they do. I wouldn't tolerate that when a public servant did something like that. I wouldn't tolerate that whatsoever. That's why I served this structure on this affidavit on these sheriffs, because we need to know the truth. And if they're not going to respond, we need to make sure that's public. You know, because cops are admitting that they have a right to murder you. And so they're not going. Go ahead.
You know the number one person gets murdered for in the United States?
The what?
The number one thing the cops murder people for in the United States.
Well, go ahead.
It's called contempt of cop. Failure to obey a lawful a cop's order, he's got the right to kill you.
Mm-hmm. That's what they're using. And that's the one thing you don't want to be part of. And people say, well, that's okay, that's acceptable. But, and I hate to tell you this way in that form, but that's always a religious point of view. You know, I'm not going to break the law. I'm going to be a good slave. And that's what it comes down to. You're consenting and you don't have rights. And then you want to bitch because something didn't happen your way. Or, you know, you didn't do something and then all of a sudden somebody you know was assaulted, attacked, or murdered. And we're not supposed to be doing this to one another. We're supposed to be protecting one another in our territories. Because I don't like the British word communities. That's like saying a village takes a village to raise children. It takes parents to raise children, not a village. That's what always gets to me when you hear that word village. And I had a couple interesting conversations with a couple people trying to get me to, you know, oh, Dad, you got to talk about the village. And I said, what? Controlling you? Destroy? No rights? That's the one thing that... Go ahead.
Excuse me, that document's on your wall. Do you want me to grab it?
Yeah, I see the email you sent me to, or the message you sent me.
Okay.
I'm trying to open that up right now. Like I said, my computer is running molasses. But this is the one thing that it's our problem. It's our states. It's our counties. It's our cities. And the reason why I say it's ours because we, the lawful bloodline American, is supposed to own the stocks in those cities. They're not supposed to be selling them on the black market called Wall Street. So let me know when you're willing to play that if you got that. But yeah, we're not supposed to be sitting there going through this stuff like this. But they're doing that because they have to have control over you. Because you're not responsible. And this is how they get away with this stuff, even murdering, assaulting people. I mean, I've been assaulted. I'm in Newport Coast when I was putting the ballot title out to put subsistence hunting and fishing back in. They tried to murder me at Nye Beach, right in front of a group of 50 people. You know, and it was really interesting when you watch people turn their back, walk away when they're assaulting somebody. And, you know, then when you got somebody that is being assaulted and want to stand up, it's like, people, you do have to get those people's names, phone numbers, address. You want them to sign an affidavit. You want to make sure that affidavit is certified, notarized, and filed. So that's the one thing that people don't think about. You know, I mean, when Rodney King got the hell beat out of him, those witnesses signed an affidavit. All right, like I keep telling you, even the laws state that a judge, attorney, a cop, none of them can sign an affidavit. It's a federal crime if they do. It really is a federal crime when they sign an affidavit because that's a dead identity making a dead case for a living man or woman or child. And the dead can't speak. How many times have you been around? Well, not everybody's been around a dead body. But the thing is, a dead body can't speak. You know, I've never heard of a case of one doing it yet. So until it does, you know, that is the point that we're living today. And until we get past that point, you know, that's the only way we're going to have an issue coming up. And then that's when it really comes down to it. And that is a fact. that is a real fact. And so once we start doing this, and like I said, I've got those affidavits. And like I said, anybody wants one on the sheriff that I've served out there, please contact me. I'm not bashful. I'll make sure you get a copy of it, because that is the one thing that you need to have. You need to know how to serve these public servants. And once you start serving your public servants, and they know that they're doing that, and when you do serve a public servant, make sure that you, post it on the county bulletin board. Make sure that it's posted on the city bulletin board. Make sure it's filed in the county commissioner's office. So that's the one thing people don't realize. You have to file these instruments with your public servants. So once you start standing up to this stuff, this is how we stop this stuff. It's the only way we're going to stop this stuff is by working together. And when we start putting our minds together, working together, then you start seeing changes. Other people have been doing that successfully. And so that's the one thing is working together on these things. And so that way, like I said, if you want to serve what I served on your state, your sheriffs, you could use the one that we put up. It's not an issue, but remember, you're an adult. You're liable for your actions. So make sure you read and comprehend what you're reading, what they're reading. Make sure you know what you're putting up there and that you're able to handle the responsibility. Because remember, it's all about responsibility, liability, your responsibility, not somebody else's responsibility. I mean, when I put that out, I'm taking liability for it and responsibility for it. So I'm making sure that, they know who I am. And believe me, I probably have had my face on dartboards in many public service buildings behind closed doors. But that's life. I'm not going to argue with it. I'm not going to fight about it. So that's the one thing that we can't sit there and argue and fight about, these semantic points of view. And once we stop doing that, we can start getting these things done, these filings on paperwork. See, if we start filing this on these public servants across the country, and then all of a sudden we're going to start seeing them in the newspaper, and then people are going to talk about it, and people are going to wake up more and more and more. That's how we get the people waking up. That's how we get the comprehension of understanding out there. And so without that, they don't have a right. They don't have a state. And that's what we want to make sure they don't. That's the whole point of standing up to these people. Because if we don't stand up to them, trust me, and when you get pulled over and you pay your traffic tickets like clockwork, they know you're guaranteed income. And like I tell people, well, if you do pay a traffic ticket, even a quarter for a copy, file a 1099 form on them. Because they're required to pay taxes if you file on them. If you don't file on them, the IRS turns their back. There has been a few police departments in this country that have I lost my train of thought. Something popped up on the deal. Sorry about that. But when it comes to filing your paperwork, file it with the county commissioners. And the other thing I do recommend is filing it with your museums. Because I file a lot of my paperwork with museums. They could only have realistic, lawful structures that are filed in museums. Museums are supposed to carry factual evidence, factual statements, factual artifacts, real artifacts. And so once that happens and you start seeing that these things get filed, people start standing together. And I've actually witnessed those things do happen. So the only one that has the way to solve a lot of these problems is we the people. We do have an acting corporation agent, And that is called Trump right now, who's the acting president of the corporations. And so when he's acting president of the corporations, remember, he has even publicly admitted he is an acting member of the corporations. So that is the one thing, when these public servants admit this stuff, we need to aid them. We need to help them. We need to talk about them. But when you start publicizing and getting that information out wrongly, then they start getting attacked. Realistically, these men and women will be attacked. And you don't want that. You want to keep honest elected and public servants out there. And once they're honorable, then that's how we're going to make these changes. And let me tell you, these changes are happening. We do see them. I mean, a lot of people might not like it, but what did Trump do? He legalized hemp again. It's been 82 years or 81 years since hemp was legal in 1937 when they did the Marijuana Stamp Act. Remember, that was done by Democrats, democracy, to take away your rights to your medication that you're able to have lawfully, not legally. And so when they did put it legally, now that changed a lot of structures on things. And that's the one thing that when people do this stuff and they bring this stuff out, it works. It really does work when people start working together and standing up. I mean, that's the one thing with this affidavit I put out there to the sheriff. People were working together to make that happen, and it happened. Now it's out there. I can't go back and retract it. I can't go back and change it. I can't go back and do anything with it. It's there. And we'll make sure that we have links up there to on Facebook, beside Facebook, on all the YouTube, Google and Yahoo. So when it gets typed in, this stuff pops up. And once this stuff pops up on YouTube and stuff, we know people are going to start reading it, looking at it. Because I know that one for a fact. You know, I mean, I know for a fact it does make things start rocking or changing. You know, and that's the one thing that we need to be more successful on it. And we're slowly getting there. People are listening to what's going on. People are paying attention to what the facts are. They really are. They're starting to get it. But I talk to many people that says, I much rather pay it so I'm not being convicted or charged with a crime. And I said, what crime? And people think that they can be charged with anything, and that's true. You can. These men and women will do anything. I've been charged with several misdemeanors, as they call them, or fractions. They had no rights doing that, but they were trying to keep me, so I keep my mouth shut. I've even been told by cops, back off, Ed. Stay away from that one issue. Stay away from this issue. Stay away from that issue. And me, I have a problem doing that. You know, I really do have a problem when I get working on stuff, and I guess that's sort of apparent to people. And it is a fact. And this is the one thing that I got to bring up with all the fires that are going on in California stuff. And these people are going, well, logging prevents forest fires. No, gleaning does. If people know what gleaning is. But when you've got a lot of underbrush and you got these dead trees, you got to get them out of the way. And you got to keep this stuff cleaned up around the stuff. And so that way anybody in the state could go out and glean. And the Democrats sure attacked that real quick because, you know, they have the timber companies in their pocket, and a lot of these Democrat senators own timber company or land. And the state of Oregon, timber companies are not allowed to own land, and that didn't just start happening until 20 years ago. And see, they were giving the land over to these timber companies because they said, we've been paying taxes on this land. Well, no, they weren't. They were paying taxes on the timber that they were taking. They were paying taxes, and most of that taxes was supposed to go to the school districts, but actually I think 12% did, and the rest of it is unaccounted for. And so the Democrats passed a bill in I believe it was 2003. They slid it through behind the back door, and so when they slid it through, the timber companies were granted free land by you, the people of Oregon, mainly the Koch brothers. And I fought against that, but when I was trying to get that out, even when it was brought up in the newspaper, people were just like, "Oh my God, Ed, let it be because you're going to cost all these jobs." And I said, "What jobs am I costing?" See, that's the point. What jobs? They want to have it controlled. They want you controlled. They want to have you so you are definitely controlled and you don't have rights. And that's what you're living right now today. And that is the saddest part. We are living this crap today. And how do we stop it? By standing up. And that's what we are doing today. There's more and more of us getting together, passing this information, getting it out, making sure people are paying attention to the circumstances of what's going on. But it takes all of us. It takes all of us doing this, and we start standing up more and more and making sure these exhibits are there. That's like the exhibits of the IRS taxes. And I've talked to people many times that says, "I don't want to put that up, or I'll just pay it and shut up because I'm afraid of going to jail." Well, if you're just not paying regular labor income tax, by law, they can't touch you. But too many people are afraid to even stand up. And so that's the problem. And we've been wrongfully educated in schools, and the schools don't teach you anything. That is a fact today. They really don't teach anybody anything. And that is the one thing is mind control. And especially when they got all these police cars and fire departments going to the schools and tricking these children to, behave. And, come look at the fire engine. Come look at the cop car. And they show them all this stuff. Well, beating in their minds so that way they could terrorize them. It's beating in their minds so that way they're afraid to do anything. And we are, like I said, it is sad that this is realistically happening today. And so the only way we're going to change it is by the affidavits, by making it public and standing with one another. And that is your responsibility. And for those of us that are continually doing it, who've been doing it for years, sometimes it would be nice for those people to give those people a thank you. Just a crazy thought, but it would be nice, sometimes it helps when you hear thank you, hey, that worked or this worked. And that's the other point too. If you got generosity, help them out, pay a bill for them or help them on one of their bills. Because I always suggest to people you want to help pay a bill for somebody, but the one thing is you don't want to sit there and make sure it's commercial or public or on the tax rolls. Because if you're doing it on the tax rolls, you're not protecting that man or woman, and you're only protecting the government. And see, when you have to do IRS taxes and all that stuff, and you're not protecting your families, that's the saddest part. Most people are not protecting their families. And so it is really frustrating when the families are not protected. And so how do you solve that problem? Simple. File on them. Read the information. Pass it on. Educate your children. Educate your structures around you. And once you start educating those structures around you, we're going to see the major changes come. And that is the one thing we want. It's interesting to watch all these people that want all these rights, but they don't want to do anything for them. But they want you to give your life for them. Well, sorry, I don't believe in that part of religion whatsoever at all. I really don't believe in that part of religion. I just don't tolerate it. Because if I want to give my life up for somebody, it's going to be why I want. Oh, by the way, I guess the United States is starting to take cadavers organs without their knowledge or family's knowledge, and because the United Kingdom passed their own administrative law that if you are mentally retarded, dead, or comatized, or anything like that, they can extract your organs without your knowledge. Hey, way to go. And the United States started doing that. I heard by one of the posts I put up on the Facebook sites, they started that this year. So it's like, people, you've got to start standing up to this stuff, because they're telling you you don't own your body, and we know that to a degree. Some of us do, some of us don't. And if you don't start owning yourself and registering yourself and owning you, you don't have a right. That's the one thing. Everybody keeps going, I have rights. It's like one wise man told me, get it certified, get it recorded. You know, you want it certified from them that you have a right to travel. You want it certified that you have a right to hunt and fish. Say, if you don't have their signatures on their statements, you don't have a right. So get the stuff certified. Get it passed on. Oh, come on, computer. Quit locking up on me. But you want to make sure that you are making these things happen. It's your responsibility, our responsibility. You know, it's the children's responsibility when they become adults. Everybody keeps talking about the next generation. Who's protecting the next generation? These kids don't have proper education. They have no proper knowledge of anything. You know, so anyhow, did we ever get that clip that we might be able to play yet or not?
Mr. Ed.
Yeah.
I just sent you 2 links. See if you can post them. This is public order crimes. This is
okay, go ahead.
All right, this is what they're arresting most of the people out of this country. All right, because they're crimes with no victim.
Right.
Okay, they're called public order crimes. People need to start researching that.
All right, that's true. We'll get that one. We might have to do a talk show on that one night. Well, like I said, the next several Sundays, we're going to start going over the, oh, God, brain fart, the Bill of Rights. So we're going to be going through that, and I got to do some research, too, on congressional records on that, too, see what they've got on congressional records and see what they might have altered or changed or stuff like that, too, on it.
Well, I'll pull up the, I'll help you out there and pull up the Constitution annotated on them and get them to you.
Okay. Yeah.
You can read it.
Right. Go ahead.
The congressional records is not really what you want to read. You want to read that Constitution annotated, because it's got all the case laws and everything already in there.
Right, but I do want to read the Bill of Rights, and I could add that into it. But I mean, we got people out there that don't comprehend or see what it is, so we've got to be bringing both sides to them.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. The Constitution, it's a Bill of Rights.
Right. Okay.
It's annotated with all the case laws and.
I know what you're talking about now. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That one.
Got it. It took me a second to think about it. Oh, come on, computer. You just didn't erase everything on my board. Oh, shit.
Yeah, I did.
Don't tell me that, because I got 10 hours I have to download and redo everything again. I just did that last week. I mean, it was just a pain in the ass. Somehow somebody's got a back door into my computers. And I don't open things usually, and I don't take things in usually, so, because I really don't. I mean, the only thing I do is Facebook at times and that stuff. A lot of emails, I don't even open ads, and I don't open things that people sent me, because unless I know them, I don't trust. Been through that before in the past. So, but like I said, the Bill of Rights is one thing that we need to be walking people through. So I'll be pumping that out on Facebook this week for next week, primarily, just because we're going to do an introduction this week to it, and then the following week we're going to start on Bill 1, Bill 2, Bill 3. We'll go through it all. And that's the one thing we want to make sure we get this out to the general public, because most of the general public doesn't even know how to wipe their own butt when it comes down to this stuff. And like I said, go ahead.
None.
I got you. And this is the one thing that people don't sit there and protect their own family on it. I've watched people, when a state comes up and says, well, we want to take your kid. Okay, take my kid. And the kid's screaming and yelling and, and parents just allow this stuff to happen. And they don't want to educate themselves. And that's the saddest part. Some of these people truly don't even want to educate themselves. They want to keep their head in the sand. They just want to be the sheep that jump off the cliff. And so I stay away from those type of people, 100%. I've helped out, that 50, 100 people, 200, 300 people. And, you help them, you bring evidence to them, you give them ideas about their case, suggestions, and then they don't proceed. They don't follow through with anything, and then they want to whine. And then sometimes these people want to blame you for what they failed in, because they do that so that way they can look good for their own children or look good for somebody else. Oh, good, everything came back. And that's sad. That is so sad that we're living in a place, a republic constitution, and people don't even care about it. They care about, I got a job to do. And then they go to their job. And when they go to their job, what happens with their job? If they don't follow their job correct, they get fired. And then they want to bitch because they get fired. That's the one fortunate. I was lucky in life. I've only got fired by a couple of jobs, and about 6 jobs I got fired in life, and 4 of them I caused myself to get fired because I got pissed off, So they fired me, and I already had another job. Usually when I do that, I always have another job lined up ahead of time before something like that happens. Because you got to protect yourself. You got to have work lined up before you go off to another project. And that's the one thing I was fortunate enough, I never went through the state to get a job or unemployment to get a job. I always went out and got my job. I always did that on the word of mouth on the street, or called up the restaurant or called up the auto shop and said, hey, you need a mechanic. I got this qualification, that qualification. And I always liked it when they asked me, well, do you have state certification, ASE? And I said, no. And I said, do you want a qualified mechanic, or do you want a state certified mechanic that doesn't know what he's doing? And that's a lot of time that these state certified mechanics don't even know what they're doing. And it's really sad. Me, I was blessed. I was trained and educated by old mechanics. I used to take a broomstick handle to a motor, and I could tell you what valve was not working. I could tell you what was going on by the noise inside the bearings when they were turning on the crank. You could hear it. And, today they're not even taught that stuff. They're taught to plug in the computer. And if the computer doesn't, I used to be able to tell you what device that wasn't working back then. And so that was the blessing point that I had back then that kept me employed, because I knew more than most mechanics did. And so most of my training was on-job training from elder mechanics in the 70s and 80s. And most of those mechanics already had on the average of 30 or 40 years in the field, so they knew all the old tricks, before the computers came in. And they taught you how to hear and listen to this. And, it's interesting if you ever take a broomstick handle and put it on the block of a motor, you can hear the motor turning, you can hear how the valves are clacking. And it is interesting when you learn how to do different things that are not what they call normal. And most people go by normal things. And that is the frustration that we're going. So, but anyhow, did we ever get that one tape, that one thing uploaded yet? Is he there? Hello? I guess not. I don't know what happened to the producer right now. I'm not online, so I can't double check that one. I'm waiting to get back on. So, because I wanted to play that before we shut down this evening, because or we might have to have that set up for tomorrow night to play. Probably have to have that set up tomorrow night to play an introduction, because people need to hear this stuff. I got a couple other ones that I want to be able to start getting up, because I want to start putting some introductions every week, because people need to start hearing these things, what these public servants are doing, what they're telling people, what they're suggesting, how they're screwing the people in this country up. And the one thing is, I never trust a public servant, because I know right off the bat, I've known that since growing up. We're living and working and around public servants. God, I figured that out when I was about 12, 13 years old. I grew up with the Public Employees Union around me and by public employees all around me. So I listened. I was in, one thing I look back, I was in a couple of Jerry Brown's campaigns when he was running for governor in the 70s. I was glad I never had anything to do with Nancy Pelosi in the 70s, but listen to her BS. But, that was one thing growing up around politicians. And trust me, it's a different story, a different life growing up around politicians than you may think. Most people just follow the sheep or the wolf. And me, I learned from them because I just couldn't tolerate what they were doing to the people and us. So, anyhow, I'm trying to get back online here. Waiting for my windows to open up again. Oh, what are you doing way up there? Now my computer's going off in a different direction. Come on. Well, give me a few minutes here while my computer elaborates and comes back to life. But, these are things that we are starting to accomplish. Like I said, I got two responses basically. One response for, I believe it was Josephine County, where their district attorney is going through the affidavit of Freedom of Information Act I sent them. And then I thought it was interesting when I got a call from Homeland Security from the Terrorist Division, telling me, well, with files, but we'll look at it, but we don't know if we can do anything. And I said, well, they're committing terrorism, domestic terrorism. Isn't that a crime? Well, yeah, it's a crime, but we can't talk about it. We can't elaborate on it. Okay, so it's legal to rape, rob, and murder. And the lady's like, well, no. And I'm going, well, basically, you just told me that. That's the way I take it. I look at life very simple and plainly. I don't look at it, from an objective point of view, from a legal point of view, that gives me a right to get away with what I want to get away with. And that's how cops think, too. That's the way they're trained. They're literally trained how to get away by assaulting you. And they know it. And these men and women know this stuff. That's what stuns me. They know what they're doing. And when they get away with this stuff without you standing up to them, they know it. And like I said, if you're paying your traffic tickets and, your building code fees and all that stuff, see, that's the one thing. I'll be honest with you, man. When I built my house, I didn't pay code fees and stuff. They kept on trying to force me into this, and I kept on saying, show me the law, show me the law. Of course, I read the law. I read the statute codes and administrative rules. And even in their own statute codes and administrative rules, it clearly states if it's not commercial, it's non-taxable. But then if you don't pay it, they want to shoot you. So it is frustrating. We are technically living this bizarre craziness. And it is a fact. Okay, I think I'm online again. So let me see what's up here. Let me see where we're at here. I have no idea where he went to. Oh, come on. Okay, I lost half of my windows that I had open, but that's okay. So, but I've been posting this letter up with the sheriff stuff I've been filing on different Facebook sites. So that way people can see this stuff too. People can comprehend what it is. And that is what we have to do, is educate each other, work with each other, open these things up for each other, teach each other what, why, and how. You know, it's like House Resolution 192. You know, we're still trying to get that active. And they know it. They're using that against us. And they know this stuff. And so when they're getting away with rape, robbing, murder, racketeering, and extortion, that's why these affidavits on file. And then when you got somebody who actually does investigate these things, who do stand up on these things, then, you know, it's happening. I mean, since Donald Trump has came into office, we are seeing more and more public servants starting to come more and more in line with their public duties. And it is a fact. People are afraid of what's coming down the pike. And so we're going to see what happens with Trump here in time. But, you know, when it comes down to it, the guy has, you know, done more for this country than anybody else has done. And people don't realize Donald Trump already paid off 1/4 of the entire national debt. And so people don't realize that, you know, they want to go out and slam Trump, and they don't realize a lot of things he has actually done. You know, and then me, I don't vote. I don't participate in the corporation. I really don't participate in the corporation. So, okay. So anyhow, I don't know what happened. We'll have to play that one tomorrow night. So anyhow, I guess we're going to call it an evening tonight. I have no idea. Oh, okay. So I'll get back to this. Okay. So, but anyhow, I don't know what happened to the producer, so we're going to wrap up the program tonight. I don't know what's going on. So anyhow, I would like to say thank everybody for joining us. May the Great Spirit Mother Earth bless you, and may the Creator look over you. And so anyhow, we'll see you all tomorrow night, and have a good evening, and may the Creator bless you.
All participants are muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Like I said, I was fighting my computer. Literally, it was shut down on me 6 times. Right.
Created with free version for non-commercial use.
You can disagree all you want. I'm here to protect these people here. And they called me off the road because they were alarmed that you were taking photographs.
Well, it's funny you say alarm because that's the same terminology that they used. Can you hold this? Yeah. It's the same terminology that they used the other day to kick me out of another public building. Okay. Under New Jersey law, with the alarming and all that, I don't fall under alarm because I'm in a public building recording, which is my first and
You
second.
know what, I really don't even care about that because Obama has decimated the freaking Constitution. So I don't give a damn because if he doesn't follow the Constitution, we don't have to.
It's New Jersey case law. Yes, you don't have. Did you get that?
Yeah.
He doesn't have to follow the Constitution.
Because if our president
That's
decimate our Constitution, then we don't have to.
That's the law of the land. You have to follow it, whether when he does it or not.
Then you tell him that.
This
in
is
the
going on
meantime-
YouTube, just to let you know. I disagree.
You can
Created
disagree all
with
you
free
want.
version
I'm
for
here to protect
non-commercial
these people
use.
here. And they called me off the road because they were alarmed that you were taking photographs.
Well, it's funny you say alarm because that's the same terminology that they used. Can you hold this? Yeah. It's the same terminology that they used the other day to kick me out of another public building. Okay. Under New Jersey law, with the alarming and all that, I don't fall under alarm because I'm in a public building recording, which is my first and
You
second.
know what, I really don't
Amendment
even care about that because Obama has decimated the freaking Constitution. So I don't give a damn because if he doesn't follow the Constitution, we don't have to.
It's New Jersey case law. Yes, you.
Thank you. So, but that is a problem we are dealing with today. So anyhow, like I said, I'd say goodnight to everybody.